that will... Thank you, Stefan. Okay, let's start, and hopefully everybody who wants to join can catch up the train. So thank you everyone for joining for this very exciting webinar about circular spaces and how transforming urban areas through circular innovation. It's part of the Tech and Space for Circular Economy project that we have been running with Creative Climate Cities and the Visa Adlershof campus. So what you can expect today, well, a welcome, I think we just did. Then we are going to provide you with some tools for bringing circular economy into urban spaces, and followed by some example from praxis. So we have people involved into projects of Berliner TX, I don't know how to pronounce actually, Berlin TXL, the Circular Architecture Agency, and CityDex. And we will have a panel with a Q&A as well at the end with some closing words. So any question that you have, you can ask them in the chat. Today, I am your host. I am part of Circular Berlin as the electronic sector lead. And with me, we have Stefan Aufrichter, who is the Tech and Space project manager on Circular Berlin side and also part of the education team. And he is also helping me to animate this webinar, where you can also ask him any question or any technical or informative questions around this. And just in a few words, what is Circular Berlin? Who we are? We are a nonprofit organization with the mission to accelerate the transition of Berlin towards the circular economy. So we envision it as a resilient and citizen-oriented region. We work open source. We do projects which are replicable anywhere and that we implement them in Berlin. That's our focus. We are also a community. So we have today more than 140 community members. Anyone can be a community member. You can today join as an individual or as a company or organization. And as of today, we've realized 19 projects already around circularity in different topics. Textile, constructions, electronics, food sectors, and spaces as well. And so we have also organized more than 50 events. So what is this project about? So why Tech and Spaces for Circular Economy? So the idea here is that tech can enable some opportunity for the circular economy. So we have been focused in this project funded by the Berlin Senate that we also thank today, focus on optics, photonics, and material sciences, and how these technologies or innovation can help for facilitating production, reuse, repair, and recycling. But also tech alone is not enough. We need space, and we need innovation promoting spaces that provide room for cooperation and obviously exchange between different players and areas for experimenting and testing. So we've been, as I said at the beginning, we've been doing this project with Creative Climate Cities and Vista, who has a scientific campus at Adlershof on the way to the airport, for those who are not so familiar where Adlershof is located. In this project, we have 3 phases. The first one being collecting the dots that we did last year. It's about mapping the ecosystem, and we are finishing our guidebook to share our insight and valuable lessons that we've learned through this process. We are also running a series of workshops, part of the connecting the dots phase. And we selected different topics, so textile, electronic, and space so far. We have 2 more workshops to go, and followed by, and actually happening in parallel, scaling the dots phase, and third phase, which is an ongoing series of webinars. That's where we are today. The idea is like to foster cooperation and knowledge exchange. So we are also sharing some information here and inspiring people to also join or contribute to this topic. Our next event would be on Monday 16th of June from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. It's again about circular spaces. This one will be in German, so the topic is Entwicklung zirkulärer Gewerbegebiete. Last time it was also in German. We had a bit of a hybrid system. So if you really want to participate, please write to us, and we will also figure a way out to include you to and make sure it's inclusive. So please, you can scan. I think Stefan is also sharing the link in the chat. You will have another opportunity to scan this QR code afterwards. And I would like to invite our first speakers of today, who is Chantal Schöp, project manager, also on this project and urban futures and circular economy team at Creative Climate Cities, who will speak about tools for bringing the circular economy into urban spaces. Chantal, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will share my presentation. That should work, right? You can see it. Perfect. Yeah, so Remy also already introduced me. I will present a tool to put circular economy into urban spaces, and we developed this tool as part of the project Tech and Spaces for Circular Economy. Before I start, I will shortly introduce myself. I'm Chantal Schöp, a project manager at Creative Climate Cities. Creative Climate Cities is an agency for digital urban development, and we work at the intersection of urban development, digitalization, and visual communication to design, advise, and implement urban transformation processes. As part of the project, we are investigating which spatial conditions are required for business parks to support knowledge transfer, cooperation, and circular economy practices. So that's our main focus. So we developed a catalog of criteria to systematically assess the spatial qualities and potentials for a business park to actually promote circular economy practices. So let's have a look what we actually did. If we're taking a look at the National Circular Economy Strategy, it becomes quite clear that we have quite ambitious goals, such as reducing the consumption of primary raw materials and closing material cycles. And the focus here is on measures such as the increased use of secondary raw materials, increasing recycling rates, and also the introduction of digital product passports. But as Remy also already mentioned, technology is not enough. And firsthand, it requires a stable network and exchange of experience, which in turn has spatial conditions or consequences. So if we really want to implement a circular economy, we must also ask what requirements, for example, industrial parks must fulfill in the future in order to function as a space for circular economy. And therefore, we developed a catalog of criteria to apply on the Adlershof Business Park as a pilot area. So to actually bring circular economy into urban space, we have 3 steps. We developed the catalog, then we filtered it in regard to spatial conditions, and then we applicated for the Adlershof Technology Park. So we did a site visit, interviews, and data analysis. So the catalog is actually or mainly for property and location developers who want to gain an overview of the topic and who want to manage the development under the guidelines of circular economy. And I will give you a short introduction of the catalog. We divided it into 3 subject areas. First is the technical infrastructure, so technologies and infrastructures which promote circular innovation at a business park. Then we have spatial conditions referring to efficient use of space, but also places for exchange and cooperation. And of course, people who act as drivers and enablers for the circular economy. Within each category, we have several indicators, and here are some examples. Like, it's a really long list of indicators, and that's really just a quick overview. So we look at infrastructure such as supply and disposal for water, energy, and waste, but also digital infrastructure such as digital twins. And for example, we look into material inputs and outputs, like can or do we identify complementary resource requirements at the location, or where are byproducts or waste materials from one industry suitable for another industry. Regarding spaces, we're looking at spatial aspects contributing to saving space or working together. So it's, for example, shared delivery areas, where we ask to find like neighboring companies sharing delivery areas, which saves resources. Another indicator is the shared material storage. Do we find any material warehouses which are shared to facilitate cross-company resources or reuse, or physical clusters, like do we have any physical proximity between the companies, which also promote the exchange of knowledge and cooperation. And regarding the subject area people, we look, for example, at site management, like do we have a location management who acts as a developer, administrator, and network manager, and is responsible for organizing the cooperation and infrastructure development. We have used this catalog for Adlershof, so we checked what is actually available there, where's the potential to implement the circular economy guidelines, and I will quickly show you some of the results in terms of spatial conditions. So what's already there? We found that there is a close spatial proximity of technology centers and companies which can promote a professional exchange. We have a good mix of science and business in Adlershof, so it creates the ideal conditions for innovation and development of new business fields. We have shared meeting rooms in 5 of 12 technology centers, which actually promote the efficient use of spaces and also the exchange between companies. And we have the Rudauer Chaussee, which is a street which runs from east to west, and it forms the main axis of the technology park, and it serves as a central access road with connections to public transportation, high density of services along these roads, and it offers restaurants, hybrid workspaces, and also the universities and companies are located along the street. We also identified 8 buildings that combine several services or functions under one roof. So they often combine hybrid work or event spaces, catering facilities, and outdoor areas. They also opened up a workspace. So it all promotes encounters, visibility for activities, and potential collaborations. And I also want you to give a really quick overview of the identified potentials in terms of spatial conditions for the promotion of exchange and cooperation. So we would recommend to install a central and physical contact point for network management and communication, who can then facilitate the access to important information and support services in the area of circular economy. And as seen on one of the previous slides, there's a main axis in the area, but it would make also sense to expand the office through decentralized services to ensure that more people can actually reach offers and information about the circular economy. Also, small measures can have a big impact. For example, well-kept green spaces, sufficient indoor and outdoor seatings, or also shaded areas for the summer months can promote the collaboration possibilities. And so far, there has been a lack of relevant events and formats on the topic of circular economy at a location. So with this project, we also try to strengthen the offer, since workshops can create a valuable platform for the exchange of best practices, also technology demonstrations and networking to then jointly develop solutions for the challenges for the circular economy. So that was a really quick overview of our results so far. And as Remy already mentioned, like there's an upcoming workshop where we present a catalog of criteria in detail, hear impulses from practical experiences, and work together on solutions and requirements for circular site development. And yeah, Amy also mentioned we will publish the guidebook with all our foundings, and yeah, we are keen to work further on it. So thank you very much. I will stop my presentation.
Thanks a lot, Chantal. It was very interesting, and I'm looking forward to the workshop to get more into the details of like all the criterion and the methodology that you developed. So thank you. Our next speaker is Yannick Fechner, who is project manager for product development in the field of building construction and urban development for the Tegel project at the Tegel project GmbH. So, but organizing the Berlin TXL, and he will walk us through circular concepts in there. So, Yannick, thank you. I will also let you present yourself.
Thank you very much, Rim. Hello, everyone. My name is Yannick. I'm from the Tegel Projekt GmbH. I will quickly share my slides. Can you see them?
Almost.
Almost.
Or maybe it's just, no. Okay, now we can.
You can see. Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, thank you again. Yeah, I'm Yannick. I'm working for Tegel Projekt GmbH. We are a public company owned by the Land of Berlin, and we are responsible for the transformation of the former airport Tegel in Berlin. And I will quickly present you our circular concepts. First of all, we will have a look at the main project, Berlin TXL, which is the name for the whole project. Then I will give you an overview about our reuse and recycling concept, Berlin TXL. Then I will quickly talk about reuse in outdoor areas. And the last point, Future Hut, is another project of our company. Unfortunately, my colleague Stephanie, who should be with us today, is sick, so she can't be there, and she is responsible for the Future Hut. So I'll give you a quick overview, 2 or 3 sentences to that project, and I will share the slides afterwards with you. So if you have questions for the Future Hut, you can ask Stephanie directly via email. Yeah, as I already mentioned, we are responsible for the transformation of the former airport, which you can see here, and we are developing the whole area into the city of tomorrow. So basically, the picture you can see here, this is the airport area, what it will look like in 2040. What are we going to do there? We have different projects running on that whole site. I will present you quickly the 2 most or biggest projects. First of it is the Schumacher Quartier. See in purple on the right side here. This is going to be a residential area with 5,000 apartments for around about 10,000 people. And the second project is the Urban Tech Republic. You can see here in blue. This is going to be an innovation and technology park where we want to settle companies, startups, scientific institutions, university dealing with urban technologies. as the name already says. Maybe you have the question, what are urban technologies? It's a pretty big field, but for us, we will focus on these 6 topics like energy, mobility, water, recycling, new materials, ICT. And as you can see, recycling and new materials is connected to circular economy or to circular approaches. And basically, there are 2 ways to deal with these topics. The one way is we want to settle down different actors dealing with or working in these fields. And on the other hand, we as a company, we also want to follow these topics or these approaches. That means that we also think in our work, how can we do recycling? How can we use new materials? How can we deal with this? And for that reason, we were developing last year the reuse and recycling concept. This concept focuses on the buildings. As you can imagine, we are a former airport. We have a lot of buildings on the site from the 70s, and we were thinking, how can building materials be reused? So how can we use the materials, the elements we have already on our site in the former process? And to give you an overview about, here you can see the buildings in the Urban Tech Republic. The yellow ones, these are buildings which are going to be developed by the Senate of Berlin, not by us. That's why they're like, we don't look to them closer. For us, the buildings we are dealing with are the purple and the pink ones. The pink ones are those buildings who will be deconstructed completely. And the purple ones, they will be transformed into a new building. For example, you can see the Terminal D here. And Terminal D will be transformed into a technology center. And the concept is the concept I will present you is how do we start the whole process of reusing material. And you can see it on that slide. I know there's a lot of information on it and a lot of text, but I will quickly run you through it. The first part we have to do is the analysis. So we check what kind of materials do we have. Is that material contaminated? As you can imagine, the buildings are from the 70s, so we have asbestos and all that stuff. So we have to check if we can really reuse the material. Another thing we have to deal with is the monumental protection. So most of the buildings are protected, so we have to deal with this. And then, of course, we have to check what materials are reusable, what materials are what materials we can bring to the market in case that we can't use them by our own. Is there a market of third party who can use them? We have to do a CO2 calculation, and all this information has to go into a database. So that's the first step, the analysis, what you can see in blue here. The application, we have 4 steps. Like priority number 1 is, if we take out material from a special building, we try to use that material for the same building. For example, we take it out of Terminal D, we transform Terminal D and use the same material. If this is not possible, we check if we have another project on our site where we can use that material. If this even is not possible, we want to go to the third party use. That means we need actors or cooperation partners use our materials. And if this is even not possible, then we go to the disposal. This is like the process we want to implement. And of course, to do all of this, we need a management. So where are we standing at the moment? The current status is we have finalized a tender at the moment. We are a public company, that's why we have to do tenders to search an external service cooperation partner who supports us by implementing the whole concept and by testing it on Terminal D. This is going to be our first project. And then we check if it's working, how we imagine it, and we check the lessons learned, we adapt the concept and improve it. It's the process. Our main challenges are timing. So we are already a bit late because some of the construction is already going on, the planners are already there. So the information we get from the analysis, they can't use anymore. That's one big problem. Then, of course, legal issues, like if we, for example, use doors in a new building, there's the question of warranty. And as I already cooperation, like the third party use, we need cooperation partners and we have to do tenders. That was like the concept for the buildings. Now I'm talking about the reuse in our outdoor areas. As you can imagine, we have a lot of concrete and natural stone on the site, as you can see here. And we want to use as much as possible of that material. And basically for the outer area, we have 3 application fields. One is the downcycling. So we have to construct a lot of streets and we could use the material for road base layers. That's one thing we are thinking about. The second point is recycling. So just really simple, use the concrete we have, recycle it and make recycled concrete. Third application is the reuse. So we have a lot of parks and outer areas on our site, and we need furniture, for example, banks, as you can see on the visualization here. And we try to take the materials, the concrete we have on our site to build these furnitures. The current status here is that we are doing the pattern production at the moment. So we produce patterns, check the technical feasibility, checking the design quality, how are the environmental characteristics. And so, yeah, it's like kind of a test phase. Challenges are costs. So using the concrete from our side is pretty expensive. We have to coordinate all the things with the authorities. As you can imagine, if we build a street, there are norms, standardization processes, and we have to stick to them. There's not that many experience with that field, so this is quite a challenge. And also the procurement processes. As I already mentioned, we are a public company, so we have to do tenders, which makes it a bit harder. Then I'm coming to the third project, the Future Hut. Yeah, as I already mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to write my colleague Stefan your mail because I'm not that detailed into that. But just to give you a quick overview, the Future Hut is on the one hand a brand, on the other hand a location. Basically, we want to construct a hub in the Urban Tech Republic where different actors come together, thinking about new materials, circular materials for the construction, and the focus is on timber. So that's like the main focus. Just skip that quickly. I give you, because I think I'm already over my time, I give you like some examples what we're already doing. We had an exhibition, Material Culture, where we're showing different material projects, how you can reuse material also like in an arty way. That's like the one project. The second one is the so-called Circular Hut. This is a cooperation with Trick Brick. They are using timber bricks, reused timber bricks to build buildings. And we have a small pilot project on our site, the so-called Circular Hut. You can see here on the right side. And the third one is we are part of the EU project Timber House. In the Timber House project, we are thinking about new ways of using timber and also using reuse timber. So it's a project running for the next 4 years, and we are like partner in the Timber House project. So yeah, that was like a quick overview. I skipped some slides as you saw. If you have any questions, so afterwards or in the next days, feel free to contact us. And yeah, we can talk about this. And for now, I think later in the Q&A, maybe there will be some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yannick. It was very insightful. And for me, who flew through Tegel Airport, it's also interesting to see how it's going to transform. So it's very exciting. Our next speaker is Julia Kraft, who is the managing partner at Circular Architecture. And she will walk us through how transforming urban spaces through circular architecture takes place. Julia, please.
Can you see the slide?
We can see them, yes.
But it's not full screen, huh?
It's not full, no.
Okay, maybe I do it that way.
It works.
Okay, so thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to present some of our work in urban space development here today. And my name is Julia Kraft, and together with Lukas Klinkenbusch, we co-founded Circular Architecture. We met while working as researchers at TU Dresden, where we led several projects focusing on urban mining and circular architecture. Our work is guided by 3 core principles. Construction, we design our buildings to be sustainable and fully disassemblable. The construction is always simple, allowing components to be taken apart and repaired easily. Second one is function. All our designs are based on modular and efficient elements. This allows multiple uses and make it possible to reuse entire structures or adapt them for different contexts. And third one is aesthetics. For us, designs always emerge from the material itself. We work with material that have a past, and we embrace their sign of use, their patina, and their stories. This became part of our architectural identity. One example of our work is a memorial site near an old train station, observing the history of deportations. The challenge was to create a circular, sustainable intervention that is also sensitive to the historical context. Our first step was that we began with a site analysis, and we explored the space through the eyes of others. So we listened, observed, and discovered how the space is perceived and experienced by the community. After that, we organized workshops to actually integrate the local community, city officials, and other relevant actors. This early involvement creates shared ownership and helps align expectations across different groups. From these workshops, we developed needs patterns, familiar narratives, concerns, and goals of the people. These topics inform our design strategy and help ensure that many perspectives are included in the design. On site, we discovered old concrete railway sleepers. These elements are not only structurally solid, but also symbolically meaningful. So especially those components became a central part of our design. Based on both our materials and the social analysis, we developed a visionary image of the future site. This is a visually plan that city officials and stakeholders can use to guide the next phases of urban planning. And we never start by building the entire vision. Instead, we begin with a small piece, a catalyst. Here, it's the first built-in intervention in front of the train station, announcing the beginning of the transformation process. This new public space was activated through events, educational programs, discussions with the community members, and cultural happenings. And during these events, we collect information. We make these whispers of thoughts visible to everyone through, in this project, through slate panels installed on the site. And the installation was originally intended to remain for just a few months, but the tool was so well accepted that it has now been approved to remain for several years to support the long-term development of the overall project. By starting with a small intervention and including all stakeholders from the beginning, the city now has a clear visual conceptual roadmap for the future. Our design has already been integrated into municipal documents and planning discussions. And I think the feeling that a common journey has already begun appeared with the real existence of the first building step, the catalyst, in connection with the community events. Through this, people start to trust that they are truly being included in the process. Another project is our climate pavilion. Unlike the memorial site, this one was fully self-initiated. We had no client or request. Instead, we started with an urban analysis to figure out what the real needs are. We avoided jumping into a solution too early. Instead, we said first we need to fully understand the problem. Only then can we define the task specifically. This led to a study we published in the form of a brochure outlining a specific proposal for a climate pavilion in Dresden's city center. Our research included ethnographic observation and interviews with local people. We wanted to understand how space is used and how people relate to it emotionally. The result was a modular pavilion system designed for the public space and used as a conversation starter around the topics of climate change, sustainable city planning, and urban transformation. As always, we worked with reused materials sourced directly from the urban material cycle, and we developed a construction system that is reusable, disassemblable, and easy to transport as a flat pack. This connector we developed by us specifically for this project. It allows simple assembly and disassembly of the wooden modules in different configurations. The connector is not just functionally, it is also a key design element that ties the modular system together visually and structurally also. The system is modular, flexible, and adaptable, allowing it to respond to different contexts, user groups, and changing needs. And the first version was installed in the heart of Dresden's old town and remained in the place for one season. And a year later, we rebuilt it in Berlin in front of the Reichstag with the same components, but new context and new configuration. Just like the memorial project, the pavilion became a catalyst for dialogue, events, workshops, and co-creation formats. These events were central for activating the space and learning how people want to use it. They directly helped improving the system further. And the design system grows with each iteration. So new use cases and feedback inform future expansions. And the system adapts to new urban contexts. So the city approved and funded our self-initiated project through our future vision image, and city administration gained a concrete foundation for future planning decisions. At every step, we use our impact metrics to monitor ecological and economic effects. Without this, even well-initiated sustainable projects can have unintended, sometimes negative consequences. So we qualify and quantify our actual impact through the entire process. So we don't just design and build, we also consult, especially during early stage design processes. So too often circular construction is reduced to only material choices, while traditional planning processes stay the same. So we advise on how to integrate circular design principles from the very beginning. And yeah, thank you very much for the attention. If you're interested in working with us or want to learn more, feel free to contact us.
Thank you, Julia. Very, very interesting to see that your bootstrap initiative, your own initiative also made it to becoming like adopted by the city. So very happy to see that this type of initiative also works. And our final speaker today is Wolf Kramer, who will talk to us about circular urban products in public spaces in his quality of managing partner at CityDex. So Wolf, you have 10 minutes to complete our list of interesting talks, and then we can also have a shared discussion together.
Okay, then hello everyone. Thanks for having me today. I try to show you my screen, but it's not working.
You have the big green button at the bottom.
I think I have to, I'll be right back.
Okay. So I wish we had like a transition music to play in this moment like you have during like calls to any services, but we don't. So, and I'm not very good at singing. So we just speak while Wolf comes back with his presentation. Is it working now for you?
Yeah, it should. Just a second. Here we go. Now you should see my
Yes,
slides.
perfect.
And I can make it full screen. I think now it's working. Okay, so I'll jump right into it. My name is Wolf. I'm a founder and CEO of CityDex. We produce urban furnitures in Mannheim. We're from Mannheim. We started 5 years ago. Before that, my partner Robin and me, we had a planning office called Yalla Yalla, and we were mainly into temporary urban interventions. Now it's more called placemaking projects, but like 10 years ago, it was about urban interventions. And so we had a lot of experience in this, temporary projects. And one day we started asking ourselves, do we have to do all the temporary interventions? Or might there be a way to produce tools or products so that municipalities or planning departments could kind of start doing their own interventions? And that's when we came up with our first urban furniture idea, which was a parklet back in 2017-18. We started with the idea, and in 2020 we started the company CityDex. Today I want to talk about what makes a great place. This is a picture or a graphic from a project for public spaces, and it shows all the qualities or properties a space requires to be a great place. So we have these uses and activities, we have the sociability, access and linkages, comfort and image. And basically the first studies about public spaces also on which Jan Gehl was involved like almost 50, 60 years ago, it's basically the same. You need benches, you need trees, you need kind of social control. It's not kind of rocket science, but at the same time, we still see a lot of challenges when we talk about these public spaces. So what are these current challenges? For us, of course, it's the planning sometimes or the design. Especially in the last years, it's the topic retail, shopping areas. There's a lot of stress for the companies. The uses in our city centers, they start to shift. It's less shopping, it's more restaurants, etc. We have a very serious topic with the climate change, which means the city centers or parts of our cities become hotter and hotter every year. And for some people, it's okay. For a lot of people, it's not okay. You can see it in the numbers of death related to heat, which rise almost every year. And we have a very big topic with the mobility, because we are now in the city, in the center, in the cities, in the villages, almost everywhere in Germany. We are really car-dependent mobility systems. And it's also almost not everywhere, but the last centuries it was car first policy, and we almost feel it in every project we make, the discussions we have, especially if you take away parking places, parking lots. It's very emotional. It becomes very emotional, and I think these are some of the challenges. Of course, not all of them, but this is what we experience in our daily business. Our idea was at CityDex is we need more SUVs in our cities and in Germany especially, but it's not what you might expect. We call it social urban values. It's not about car centricity, but it's more about the social qualities and enabling encounters, enabling new spaces for the neighborhood, etc. But usually we try a more humoristic approach for our storylines. So this was our slogan, or sometimes it still is our slogan. What we stand for is that we produce modular systems. You can see here our first idea for a modular parklet system. We can have it temporary or permanent, and especially the temporary aspect is very important for the cities. And of course, what we came up a couple of years ago is that you can rent urban furnitures, which is a concept that was not known until a couple of years ago to many municipalities, and so we kind of created our own market in that respect, because for them it's really it's much more easier to experiment, and when they don't have to buy it, because then they can use it for 3 months. Maybe there's a lot of backslash, and then they stop the project, and no one has to answer to the question, so why did you buy so many furnitures? Because they can say, no, we just rented it, and then they give it back. So what makes not necessary sense in an economic sense for them makes very much sense in a political perspective. And we are completely made in Germany, and our products are made in Germany. So what our mission is about, we would like to create better places. We want healthier neighborhoods, more areas, more spaces where you can move, where you can do sports, where you can meet and greet, etc. And we put the people first in our design ideas. And for us, when you talk about circularity in a more conceptual way, on the level of when we look at public spaces, we see, or I would say, there are some main properties you should address. And I think you can relate to it. We think open and public spaces should be open use throughout the day. Earlier, we had this presentation about from Chantal about industrial areas, and when you look at industrial areas, usually they are busy from 9 to 5, and after that it's really empty there. Yeah, but you have so much space which you could use for different uses, for different stakeholders, for different actors, but because of regulations, etc., or property topics, it's not possible, kind of. And I think that adds to, we put a lot of money in these public spaces, in sidewalks, in pocket parks, but sometimes they are not used efficiently. So this is what we would like to change. And we have the topic of accessibility. Who can use it? To who is it open? Who is addressed by the design of the public space? And of course, we have the topic of disabilities, or different aspects for people who are maybe just elderly people. You know, the height which you sit, or that you have, how do you call it? Armlehne, yeah, where you can put your arm, or etc., etc. So this is a topic, but also how is the space designed so that you can use it for your own ideas? You see, like sports, skateboarding, etc., or even having a small party in public space. And this is in Berlin. You had the discussion about the area around the new castle. If you should be allowed to swim in the canal. And then there were people saying, nah, you cannot swim because there is the castle, and it would kind of disrespect the architecture. And I think, yeah, so who decides what you can do in public spaces, and what degree of accessibility you have? And then the last one is adaptability. So how open is it to adapt for different user groups, different stakeholders? Is it completely pre-configured, predefined, or is there the possibility that you can alter it in regard to your needs, in regard to your own ideas? And of course, you need some infrastructure, you need some pavements, etc. You need trees, as I said before. But in this kind of infrastructure setup, what are the possibilities for adaptation for within the next 10, 15, 20 years? These are like the time spans we talk about when we design and realize new public spaces. And this is on a more conceptual level, what we do in our designs. I have like 2 or 3 more slides about one of our furniture series. We call it aufgetankt. This translates like fueled up, let's say. We won the Green Product Award just recently for it. It's completely made out of recycled plastic and has one key feature. It has an integrated water tank inside, so that you don't have to water it weekly, let's say, during summer season, which is really a pain point for most public for most municipalities, because they have just an enormous lack of resources. And so this is how we try to address it. And most of our series, to be honest, they are made out of steel and wood. It's not really common to use plastic for this kind of furniture. Many clients want steel because it's more durable, they say, etc., or more robust. But with this approach, we think it's more future-proof, let's say. You don't have the CO2 emissions as much. You can dismantle it and recycle it completely. And you have some further benefits for the clients regarding, let's say, watering, etc. And this is the last slide I want to show. It's a setup in Heidelberg at the university. And this is like the spectrum, how we think about urban circular spaces on a more conceptual level. How can we use it? How efficiently can we use it? But also on a product level. So what kind of materials are there which are more, let's say, green than the very common material that is used, like steel, for example. So these are some ideas here from Mannheim, from CityDex. I'm really looking forward to the discussion and your questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also very interesting presentation that you gave us. Yeah, I love this urban furnitures, so it's also quite close to my heart. Now, so now, like, the next phase of this webinar is to have a panel discussion. We can have an open discussion. I think today we're quite many speakers. It's quite good. It should be foster a lot of interesting topics. Yeah, so maybe I would like to start with like an open question to everyone here, which is maybe something we didn't really introduce or didn't properly define it, which is like what do you see as the truly circular urban space from your point of view? Because it can take many angles and many definitions, and in that thinking, what would be like fundamental principles that cities should basically prioritize to implement such truly circular spaces? So it's an open question. Anyone who feels the most confident to start answering, please feel free to talk. Otherwise, I will have to designate someone. So maybe we can start.
I can just start like with I think the first thing that comes to my mind, what is important if we're talking about circular spaces, is that we have a look at different aspects, different projects, and think them together, like the network and the connection of different things going on. For example, we had the example from Wolf, like for furnitures, in the outdoor area, we have buildings, but we also have business going on there. What I introduced later is like in the Urban Tech Republic, we will have companies dealing with different topics. And I think it's pretty important to to connect all these different things going on if you want to create a good circular space. I think that's one important thing.
And I would connect to this, because to connect all of these different people and which are included there, I think we need an open process to get all of this processes really done together. And what we also realized, like Wolf already said, that cities really like to rent those furniture. So it was the same with us. And so this makes it possible to have this kind of open process if you are not stuck onto the furniture you have there permanently forever. And then the community comes and says, we don't need things like that. So the process is often like that. So it's much better when you can adapt the space.
Yeah, maybe I would also add to the space needs, or space or infrastructure needs to be flexible, so it can really adapt to changing requirements. And also, like, looking at the technology parks, it's really important that also infrastructure, resources, space, and also people, like the free areas we opened up, work hand in hand, and they share their materials and resources. But it's also quite, like, we figured out that it's really difficult to figure out where materials can actually go from one company to the other. So it's a main issue, I think.
Wolf, do you want to?
Yeah, in our field, it's also a question of regulations, especially when we talk about these mobility experiments. Maybe you heard about some, then they last. How is it called? Friedrichstraße in Berlin. I mean, that was quite a bus. So then someone talks to the lawyer, and then there's the lawsuit against the municipality and so on. And this is because the possibilities for municipalities to realize these experiments are very limited, and it's really a gray zone legal wise. And I think there should be more possibilities to use, to apply these methods of experiments to engage with the stakeholders, with the neighborhood, and to ask them, is it this way, you want it this way? Or if you don't want it this way, then we rearrange it and we have it that way for the next 4 months, and then we will be smarter after the experiment. But for this kind of projects, it's often not very easy to be realized, and I think that's a question of regulations. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, would you agree, Wolf, and maybe the others, that there is something missing in the regulation and something that I kind of picked up into our discussion to be able to test, or like to be able to maybe have a first project? I remember, Yannick, you also mentioned that there is no real regulations around what you are trying to do, like reusing material, for example. Maybe it's again like an open question to everyone. Would you see like there is a need for having a more or more space into the current regulation to be able to experiment and to try different potential solutions? Would you agree with that statement, maybe?
Yeah, I would agree completely, because there are still a lot of things to do regarding regulations and laws. And I think the best way to do it, or to accelerate it, is to do pilot projects to show how it is possible. And I think that's the best way. But it's not always so easy. What I explained earlier is, like, when you build a street, of course, you have to stick to standardization and everything. So you have to find the balance to how far can I experiment, and in what way I have to stick to the regulations. So you have to find the right balance for this. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe to you, Julia, because I was quite impressed by how you managed to look at all the different aspects into your projects, from like involving the potential users or citizens, but also like looking at like the reuse side, the quality and functionality. I guess like there's also a financial side that you need to look into to make it all work together. How do you balance everything out? Like, how do you navigate into everything? Do you have you started to mention an iteration process. Is there something else that you are doing to find the right solution, which will be a sweet spot for all the aspects?
I think it's not really possible to answer this because every project is open. So it really, we really get to deal with all the new things they are coming up. I think the main goal in this process for us is to communicate with the city administration a lot, even from the first step. So we don't know how the design would look like. We get in touch with the first administration people from the city, and then it's often really important to remind them that they already accepted the process. So with the climate pavilion, we got the permission that we can build it up one night before we build it up. So everything was clear. The city paid for it, but the final permission was waiting. And yeah, we just, I think many of those kind of processes break up because of this, but we reminded always, like, we spoke to them, they accepted, they wanted it, they paid for it. So yeah, it's always the communication process is always the important thing.
Okay. So even though it was accepted, discussed, you still need to convince them afterwards that they already accepted it and that they need to move forward with it somehow. Okay, interesting. This is something I didn't expect to hear. Yannick, do you have the same issues on your side, like to have to renegotiate with like the people who give you the funds for, but the project was accepted, or like the process that you are developing was already accepted? Is it something that you also face?
Yeah, it is. But like for us, as I said, we are a public company, and then we have to discuss everything with the Senate, because we use public money. And in our case, like for example, for the reuse and recycling concept, for the tender I was mentioning, the process is still going. There still is in process. So we are still talking with the Senate and explaining them why we want to do it like this and why it's important, and also have to argue if it's more expensive, why it's more expensive, but why it makes sense anyway. So we have the same issues. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a question for you, Wolf, like based on what was said here, like obviously you have to negotiate and get the buy-in from politicians, but getting a second time, but maybe like there's also something from the user side, because you are building products for people to use. How do you gather feedback from them, and maybe in the first place, how do you assess what's needed in an area, and how do you get like the feedback afterwards?
Yeah, to be honest, we're as CityDex, we're not really part of this process.
Okay.
So we provide these solutions, but usually an urban planning office or landscape planning office or the municipality, the planning department, they decide what they need. Then they get the approval from the local, like from the, how do you call it? Like from the local politicians. And then they rent it or they buy it. And they have usually either they do it themselves, yeah, you know, the participation process, or they have an office who does it for them. But we are not part of this process.
Okay.
What I would like to address is that we have we call it we have two target groups. We have the buyers, which are usually the municipalities, but we also have the fighters, which are like local initiatives. And what we experience is that sometimes they cannot articulate what they want. And what's a big help for them is if they have a good picture of something they want and they can show the planning department or the local officials. So they say, hey, we would like to have more parklets. They could look like this. No matter if it's our product or any another product, but we experience that there is a lot of power in these local fighters or initiatives to organize or produce urban change. So this is where we have some touch points, some contacts, but not in the proper participation process. Yeah.
Okay. And do you manage to gather feedback afterwards when it's installed, or is it still going through
Yeah,
different?
we experience every kind of feedback during installation. So from people who are also positive feedback, to be honest, right? But also some people who are really angry because now there is one parking lot less in their neighborhood. Yeah. But also people who say, yeah, now it's better because I don't have to walk another 300 meters to the next bench, for instance, right? Or that there is now more green in the street. And this is sometimes it's nice to get this feedback, and sometimes it's rather annoying.
I can
Yeah,
imagine.
but this is only, like a very partial, very small part of the feedback or the discussion, which is then going on in the neighborhood or in the city as well.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, I guess you cannot satisfy everyone, from the SUV rider, proper SUV rider, and the more social SUV
In most
user.
I think in the most cases it's about what we are used to experience as human beings, and most of us, we are used to experience a lot of cars around us, and we are experienced that we can drive with the car directly to our house or to our flat or whatever it is, or to the school to drop off the kids. So and what we see is that we have some projects which last longer, like 18 months, for example, or 12 months. And after 6-8 months, and there is a scientific, how do you call it, a scientific team who watches the developments and talks to the people and do all this on a scientific level. And after a couple of months, when they do their research, usually they come to the conclusions that the change is more accepted. Yeah, but it takes time to adapt to our new surroundings. And I think this is basic human behavior, which is kind of sad in a way. Yeah, but this kind of change process takes time. Yeah.
That makes sense. Maybe for you, Chantal, based on what we just heard, and based on also what you found out during the project and building the criterion, what would be for you is the essential steps, or the 2-3 main steps that you see to initiate such a transformation, based on well, there is potential acceptance of the change, but there's also something I guess you would see as essential, maybe for acceptance, but also for transforming in a proper circular space. What would be your input here?
Yeah, so hopefully the catalog of criteria can provide a very good overview in a first hand to see like what's necessary, which are necessary aspects for planning, and which parts should be taken into account when initiating circular transformation. So the catalog can actually help you like as a guidance or as a checklist to identify what's already there or what's missing. And I think the next step would be to actually kind of build a stakeholder ecosystem, or to build up a network, so to find people who want actually to invest time or resources to push the topic. So you can actually like prioritize measurements, and maybe start with something really small, which are also visible to others, because I think in the first hand we still have to highlight the topic circular economy in a really broad way. And if we make it visible, I think people might get more interested or see the benefits of it.
I think there's questions in the chat, Stefan, that maybe we can open the discussion.
We have two questions from the audience. The first one came from June Wang, and it's related to a wolf. Let me check. Where is it? There it is. How do you get your fundings to provide this designs or production?
Until now, we did not get any funding. We are a private company, completely owned by me and my partner. We founded it 5 years ago now, and so we take care of the development process ourselves with our team of product designers, partners, etc. But until now we didn't apply for funding for for product development. Yeah.
So you are commissioned by the city or by
No. We do our own designs. We develop our own designs until we can kind of they are finalized, so that we can sell them, let's say, or rent them.
Okay.
And then people, municipalities have the need, or companies have the need for this or that item, and then they come to us. But it's our designs or our concepts that we realize, and we have thought about applying for funding, but until now it didn't came up the right kind of funding stream, let's say. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting.
Okay, and then we have also a question from Daniela. It's for all of you, I think especially for Yannick and also Chantal. You've approached circularity in the spaces through the material or construction approach. Are there also circular practices you've identified that make a space circular?
First of all, that's true. Our approach is like through the construction and material approach. But I think we already heard it today, which is what is super important is to have a network, to get an exchange, to talk to different experts from different fields. And I think it's important to involve all the actors, all the stakeholders who are connected to the space we are talking about. And I think it's pretty good to have formats, to have events, to bring them together, to do network events, and to think together what else beside the construction, beside the material approach we can do. I think that's also an important approach.
Yeah, and just to add one thing, I would say also like sharing the technology, sharing the spaces which are already there is really important. Yeah.
But I think like circularity is not I don't know if always is the right word, but very often circularity is connected to material. If you reuse something, you have a material you use, but of course, beside that, to foster this, you have to do the network.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have more questions, Stefan? No, I think
No.
was it right?
No.
Okay.
Maybe I answered to the question of the funding, because we got some funding, and we know about the problem that there is so many different funding in the air that you kind of get lost in it. So our process was always to speak to the municipalities first, and then finding with them the funding which connects to your project. So you mentioned before, Remy, that we have kind of very different processes going on, and for example, with the memorial, for the events, we had other funding than for building the site, and we had people from the city administration, which kind of guided us through the process, because they understood it in the beginning, they understood the process, and we really catched them with images and with our vision. And through this, we were able to get the right funding. And you also need to be fast in writing the funding, because in the beginning, so I said before, we came from university, so there we did lots of funding texts. But sometimes you need so many time for getting the funding that it's not economically in the end anymore. So I think it's really important to find the right funding and the right time, how much you invest in this.
Do you get support for this? Like when you write this, I mean, beyond like your discussion directly with the municipalities, do you get like specific support that helps you like basically to also curate like the proposal that you do, or?
It's different from funding to funding, I would
Okay.
say. So, I mean, it is really helpful to make it faster if you speak to the people before, then you know much better what they would like to fund. And then it's
Yes.
easier to write the funding proposal, right? So this kind of communication, I said before, it's really important to get directly to the funding.
Okay. Interesting. So from what I understand, from what all of you said, like it requires a lot of discussion. It requires networking to involve people early on to make sure like they are on board. Otherwise, and even if you do that, it might still piss off some people at the end who didn't remember that they signed up for that, or even like agree with like the results of it. Very interesting. So maybe like as a I don't know if it's final, but like as a question for everyone, like among the different circular strategies that you've played with or looked into, what was the easiest one that you found, or what was the one that you would maybe recommend? Maybe it's like you would tell me it depends on each project, but maybe there is one thing which works very well that could be replicated for and by other people who are listening today, where you would say, okay, this way of proceeding was the best, or this strategy to proceed was the best. Would you have a recommendation here to share?
I can try to start because it's not that easy, that question. But I mean, for our part, we are still at the beginning. We set up the concept and all the theoretical part, and now we try to implement it. But I think one advice is just to start, like to do pilot projects on a small scale to see if it works, and that's the best way for the argumentation with the authorities, with the politics, with cooperation partners, with funding people. So I think that's one advice. just start and do it like in a small scale where it's possible, and then try to scale it up.
Okay. Someone was starting to speak before I jumped in. Or maybe like to rephrase in a more simple way, what would be your advice to anyone who is like looking into jumping into the topic of like circular urban projects or circular urban spaces?
Maybe that it's not necessary to focus on one principle or you really want to achieve. I think it's really important to be a little bit flexible in this because if we use the example of reused material, for sure, not in all of our projects, it is possible to do 70% out of reused material because in some projects there is just no material there we can use, or we need so much energy or money to refurbish it in a way that it's not economically anymore. So you really need to be flexible and have a look at all the possible principles to see which one is getting a bigger portion or which one is maybe not.
Thank you. Chantal or Wolf, would you like to add something here?
Yeah, for me, it's quite hard to put it to our project, but like what I found really difficult was to figure out the material flows between companies and stakeholders within the area of Adlershof, because like companies sometimes do not even know which flows in, what materials flow out, so the data is not there. So it's kind of a lacking topic. I'm not sure if it's really answering your question, but that was really tough for us during our analysis.
Okay. Thank you. And Wolf?
For us, it's really mostly about the topic of public spaces and mobility. And this topic, especially mobility, is very contested. So as a general advice, and I explained briefly how I would define circular urban spaces with these properties I dived into. I think if you're about, or if your project is about public space or the transformation of public space, it's really essential to form alliances, especially even with the municipality or the politicians, strong alliances, and especially in the beginning, not to focus on the people who might be against change or against transformation. So it's more about looking for how do you call it? Like-minded people with the same perspectives, aims. But this is, I mean, it's one part of the topic of circularity. You know, I mean, when it comes to building or construction, you have totally different aspects. Or when you talk about this mobility topic, there are so many people who can profit from change, from transformation, and you should talk to them and explain to them how they will be positively affected by it. And so you gain kind of traction. Yeah. That would be.
Very interesting. So what I take as maybe my key learnings, because I was not so knowledgeable into circular spaces, is you need a lot of discussion, a lot of networking, and to build relationship with everyone from the user or the funding people or the funding organization to make sure everybody is on board. You have to stay flexible, as Julia said, to not have like extremely harsh targets. Otherwise, you might risk to fail them at the beginning. So it's also not a good outcome. And we still have challenges into like really, let's say, mapping or integrating the material flow. It still requires also some development from what I understood from Yannick, who basically explained that there's a lack of regulation also to experiment. There's many questions and many learnings still to have, and we are maybe still in an early phase actually of these developments, and that's something we can all learn in the next year, especially with this project you are working on. So this is my key learnings. Maybe you want to add one last thing or otherwise, I think it was already plenty of information. In that case, I would like to thank you, all of you, and thanks the audience as well for being here and listening to this webinar. As mentioned already, the third workshop will happen on the Monday, 16th of June. It will be in German. Again, like if you are not so proficient in German and still want to participate, please message us. We will see if how we can accommodate to some extent. Maybe Chantal will. Chantal is going to be animating this one mostly, so maybe I'm putting you into a difficult space. But otherwise, I would like to thank everyone. Thanks for participants and speakers. I think it was very interesting, and I hope to see you on the Monday 16th.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.